Welcome, everyone. It's great to see this cross-agency working group coming together today. I'm really thrilled to walk you through this explainer on what we're calling the resilience stack. Listen, as policy advisors and regulators, we all know that just rushing in to put out financial fires is just no longer enough. We actually need to fire-proof the entire system. So today, we're looking at a completely comprehensive architecture that's designed to vastly improve global financial stability. And we aren't just talking about abstract ivory tower theories here. We're going to dig into the concrete tools and the practical implementation steps that you can take right back to your respective agencies to mitigate vulnerabilities from the ground up.
Think of our agenda today as our architectural blueprint for constructing the three-layer structural model we are building together today. We'll start with the global stability architecture. Then we'll lay the foundation by seeing risk early. From there, we'll build the structure to shape incentives, move up to the command center for coordinated governance, and finally, synthesize it all by building multi-layer resilience.
Section 1. The Global Stability Architecture. Okay, let's dive into this overarching concept, our structural response to systemic risk.
Just to make sure we're absolutely all on the same page, let's define our core mandate. The resilience stack is this unified, comprehensive, three-layer architecture. Its primary goals are pretty clear: identify systemic risks early, align market incentives, and ensure completely coordinated regulatory responses. The key here is that it's a unified system. You really can't just have one layer operating on its own. Without all three acting in concert, the entire building is vulnerable to collapse the second the markets face a shock.
Section 2. The foundation. Seeing risk early. Now, every enduring building requires a solid, immovable foundation, right? So let's move down to the bottom band of our stack.
The bottom band is data and diagnostics. And I want to state explicitly that the primary goal of this foundational layer is to give regulators the exact visibility needed to see structural cracks forming early. It sounds straightforward, but we all know it's notoriously difficult in practice. If we don't have the data, we're literally flying blind. We simply cannot regulate what we cannot see.
So how do we get that visibility? Well, these are the concrete diagnostic tools that act as the actual mechanisms, the sensors, if you will, of our foundation. We're talking about high-frequency exposure reporting because, frankly, relying on month-old data when a crisis hits is a recipe for disaster. We need standardized disclosures across jurisdictions. We absolutely must have strict leverage monitoring to know exactly how much debt is floating around in the system. And crucially, we need comprehensive stress tests specifically designed for non-bank financial institutions, or NBFIs. These tools are what provide the transparent and timely oversight that is absolutely critical to our jobs.
And this brilliantly illustrates how we drill down into specific non-bank vulnerabilities using these exact steps. Let's look at a practical example of a non-bank financial crisis to really see why this matters. Imagine a massive, highly leveraged shadow bank facing a sudden, massive margin call. Because they sit entirely outside traditional banking structures, their hidden fragility just builds up unseen, and when they're suddenly forced into a fire sale of assets, that panic spreads like wildfire into the broader market. But if we execute Step 1, deploying those MBFI stress tests, and Step 2, implementing strict leverage monitoring, we can actually detect that excessive exposure way before the margin call ever happens. We catch the fragility while it's still just a minor crack in the foundation. Section 3. The structure, shaping incentives. Okay, now that our foundation is poured and our sensors are active, let's move up to the middle band, which is really the load-bearing structure of our framework.
This middle band is all about structural tools and incentives. This layer's core purpose is shaping incentives to prevent the dangerous buildup of systemic fragility in the first place. You think data only tells us what's currently happening, but incentives actually change what is happening.
Let's narrate these practical mechanisms for active market intervention. First up, redemption tools that prevent dangerous liquidity runs. Second, we have counter-cyclical haircuts. Basically, this just means requiring more collateral when markets are booming. It effectively cools things down and keeps over-leveraging in check. Third, activity-based rules. This means regulating the risky behavior itself, regardless of what type of institution happens to be doing it. And finally, implementing long-term incentives. This one is paramount. Long-term incentives specifically discourage the dangerous short-termism and that excessive risk-taking that has historically just hollowed out our financial structures from the inside.
Section 4. The Command Center. Coordinated governance.
All right, we've got our data foundation and our incentive structure in place. Now I want to guide this working group all the way up to the roof, the command center of our building, where the real oversight takes place.
This brings us to a direct challenge. And honestly, it's perhaps the hardest part of our jobs.
How do we actually coordinate under uncertainty? As an international cross-agency group, we know firsthand that financial contagion absolutely does not respect borders. When a crisis hits, the sheer complexities of cross-border coordination can completely paralyze our response.
And that is exactly why the top band focuses so heavily on governance and culture. The objective here directly answers that previous question. We have to ensure that global regulatory responses are unified and endlessly adaptable. We cannot wait for a full-blown crisis to figure out who is allowed to talk to whom.
But operating this command center effectively requires some very real human elements and cultural shifts. We need to strengthen the authority of bodies like the FSOC, the Financial Stability Oversight Council. We absolutely must enhance our cross-border coordination and establish robust, pre-cleared communication protocols. But perhaps the most important shift, and honestly my favorite part of this entire stack, is maintaining metacognitive humility. We have to possess the self-awareness to know what we don't know. Financial markets are always going to evolve faster than regulations. If we lack the metacognitive humility to accept that our models might be flawed in the face of evolving global threats, well, the entire building could come crashing down.
Section 5. Building Multi-Layer Resilience. Let's bring all of this together now and synthesize our entire architectural blueprint into a cohesive, actionable whole.
So the crucial point is how all of these elements lock together. You can see it clearly here in this master summary matrix. At the bottom, data and diagnostics gives us the tools to see risk early, our exposure reports and stress tests. In the middle, structural tools and incentives use things like countercyclical haircuts to proactively shape market behavior. And up at the top, governance and culture uses enhanced authority and communication protocols to coordinate under extreme uncertainty. If any one of these bands is weak, the entire stack fails. As a working group, our policy recommendations must address all three layers simultaneously.
As we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you, my fellow policy advisors, with this final provocative thought. Look at the incredibly strong foundation we've designed and the robust structures we've proposed. We have the data tools and we understand the incentives. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this system is run by people. So I have to ask, is our current governance culture truly equipped with the metacognitive humility required to adapt to the next unseen global threat? I urge you to really reflect on the human element of our architecture as you return to your agencies. Thank you so much for joining me today, and let's get to work building a more resilient future.